Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Talk to Audrey show. Thank you very much for joining us today on the Sunday, the 13th of December. It has been my privilege to join HAPS in interviewing expats for the Talk to Audrey show. And today I'm very excited that we have a new guest. I usually don't tell who I'm going to interview. It's just a little gimmick I have. You see the title above us, A Powerhouse on a Mission. I will tell you, it's a she, and she is a powerhouse to be reckoned with. She is Allison Ochs, the American Swiss author, also a consultant, a social worker, a public speaker, and she is the founder of Edit Change Management and Edit Books. And I tell you, she is a force and a powerhouse to be reckoned with. Right now, straight away from Switzerland, I would like to welcome Allison Ochs.
Hi, Audrey. It's nice to be here.
Nice. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. I feel like the Brady Bunch. It's like, hi. It's very good to have you. So you are right now, you're joining us in, tell me the name of the little town above Lake Geneva where you are.
Yes, I'm sitting right now in Blunny, Switzerland, and Blunny is, just to let you know, about a 5-minute drive above Montreux.
And we all know Montreux from the film festival, right?
It's jazz, yeah.
Jazz, sorry, see, but hey, it's human. We're live. So right now, I don't know how many kids are in the house, but you, Allison, is, and I'm allowed to say 50 years young and has a husband and 3 children, 17, 19, and 25 years old. Is anyone home?
Two are home right now, 17 and 19-year-old, yes.
Good, tell me. And you have 2 girls and a boy.
That is correct.
Correct. And also the great and the interesting thing is that you travel between Switzerland and between the Netherlands. So you have 2 homes, so to speak, correct?
That is correct. And it's sometimes a little bit complicated, especially during COVID. But yes, I spend my time as much as possible split between the 2 areas.
Well, great. Well, first of all, I want to talk a little bit about your private life. So I'm going to do on my little cheat sheet because that's just what I do. Let me put it this way. You and I have known each other, prior to this interview, and you are one of 11 children. Okay. So I hear people, and everyone joining us right now. And I see Peter Bittner joining us from Seattle. Hi, Peter. Great to see us. Brett's joining us from Los Angeles. So listen, guys, 11 children. You are the 6th biological child of a Mormon family. And then your parents decided to adopt a whole bunch of wonderful children from, I remember Korea. I remember you have African-American brothers and sisters. Can you tell me a little bit what happened?
What happened? So my parents are humanitarians, and my mom had this huge dream to have a dozen kids. She didn't quite make it. So her father had a bunch of kids, and he always talked how much fun it was being raised with a bunch of kids. And she just really wanted to do that. And when I was born, the doctor said, there will be no more. You're finished. And she was heartbroken. And when I was 4 years old, she had heard about adoption, and she thought, well, there are children in orphanages in this world that need families that are older, that might be handicapped. So some of my siblings are handicapped.
Oh, wow.
And she said, I'm going to give these children a home as well. So she started adopting, and she thought, well, I'll start with 1. And she got hooked. And so did my dad, and so did the rest of us. And we ended up being 11.
Unbelievable. And so let's dive right into it. Expat life. Where are they? Where are they situated? Where are they located? Your brothers and sisters and your parents?
So I have 2 siblings living in Washington State. I have the rest of them are living one lives in North Carolina, and the rest of them live in Utah. So pretty Utah focused. Most of them have stayed close to home. And then I'm the oddball that left the country, and I'm the only one that left the country. So I'm the only one that lives far away.
Wow. And you didn't only leave the country, you fell in love with your dear German husband. And you did, and you fell in love. I remember us talking, you fell in love. Did you let me see, you met him in Europe, you followed him to Europe, and you kind of threw all your plans away when you were 19. Tell me about it.
So actually, I'm going to back up a little bit. You got one very important detail wrong. So I was at the you have to imagine, with 11 children, there's not a lot of finances. Humanitarian family, 11 kids, a lot of sharing, powdered milk, because fresh milk was expensive. Orange juice was something for Sundays, that kind of life. And it didn't bother me at all, but university meant local scholarship or you don't go. So I was at the University of Utah, and I met skiing a wonderful German man. So I met him at Alta Ski Resort in Utah on a weekend as a university student. I was first year freshman, and I fell in love. And I dropped everything, packed my bags, and went to Europe and followed him there. And I haven't returned.
Wow, unbelievable. Are we allowed to know his name?
Yes, Marcus is his name, and it's actually really a remarkable story, because everybody was like, "You're crazy. This is never going to work. What are you doing?" And I mean, I dropped a scholarship. I dropped out of school, and I said, "Oh, I'll study in German." And everybody was like, "Well, what do you mean you don't speak German?" And I'm like, "I can learn. I can do this." And my parents have a friend who's a journalist, and he actually was a correspondent in Germany, and he came over to the house to try to talk me out of it. And he was like, "Look, Allie." Yes. He's like, "Look, I know this is a dream of yours, but you're young. You don't understand. You don't speak the language." And I was like, "I can learn."
Oh my God.
I did. And I did study it. I finished in Germany, but I was really naive. And then I said I was going to do it. And I have a tendency of doing what I say I'm going to do. So if I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I was like, I just rolled up my sleeves, learned the language, applied to university in Germany, got in and studied there.
Amazing. And the willpower, which I find that comes, is kind of like a red thread in between a lot of expats. I think it's because you're almost like a chameleon. You get used to living all over the place, and the fact that you started at that young age, and also, in the early years, because I remember it was around, the time that this wasn't done a lot, and then living in Germany, you lived in Switzerland, you obviously lived in Amsterdam. How did that happen? Your first move? Do you remember your first move?
So my first move was to Germany. I definitely remember, because I got on, and I also, I'm very talkative. And so I flew to Germany with my bike and 2 suitcases. And in those 2 suitcases, one of the things I took with was Christmas ornaments, because I'm a huge Christmas fan, and I knew I wouldn't have the money to go home. And I had this collection. So, I mean, that's just kind of a crazy thing that I did that. And I flew over with my Specialized yellow mountain bike. I arrived, and on the plane, I was really nervous. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, and I was young, and I was sitting next to this little lady who was older, and I told her my whole life story because I was nervous. And then she said, "Do you like musicals?" And I was like, "Yes." And she said, "Well, my son is actually one of the dancers in Cats touring Europe, and they're in Hamburg right now. Give me your name, and I'll put 2 tickets beside for you." I got to go see Cats. But I got to the airport with all of my things, and there was nobody there to pick me up. And this little old lady was like, "Are you going to be okay, dear? Do you have any money? Do you have a place to stay?" And then my husband, who was then my boyfriend, came running into the airport, dripping with sweat. He had been in a traffic jam.
Oh, it sounds like, I feel like this movie. Can we get Netflix to kind of make a series we binge watch? It's amazing.
So it all started there, and then my husband got a job offer in Bordeaux, France, and we had at the time a 3-year-old, and I had a really good job, but I was fine leaving it, and I was up for the adventure. And he asked me, "Well, should I take this?" And I kind of at the time thought, well, if we do one more international move, might as well do it now before she really starts school. So let's go. And we packed our bags and moved to Bordeaux. We lived in Bordeaux for 4.5 years. I learned French there. And then we went from there back to Germany, back to Switzerland, to the Netherlands. So it's been kind of adventurous.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. So I'm going to jump forward. So now you're married to Marcus, and then obviously you start your expat life, and you have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. And so when the children were young, how did that feel? Because obviously your children have had a completely different upbringing. It's not 11 kids. There are 3 kids, which is still, a great bunch together with 5 of you. So how did that work? Did you, because usually when you become a mom and a dad, you end up kind of, thinking about the memories of what you were raised like. What was that like? Did you think, I'm going to do it obviously completely different? What is that? What did that give you? What feeling did it bring across?
Well, it was actually, I'm a social worker. I think a lot about these things as well. And it started off before we even had our first child, conversations, because I came from this hyper conservative family and my husband is like super liberal. So we started off talking about, before we had kids, how we would deal with the differences in culture, because we had to manage that as well, because his parents were super liberal. He was very liberal. Like they would let his girlfriend come and spend the night at the house. My parents would have never allowed that. So we started in on those kind of conversations already. And then how would we do it with languages? But I did feel that I was doing everything very differently than my siblings. But at the same time, I went home every single year with the kids, and they're really close to their cousins, and they had a great time playing in the States with their cousins. But they always noticed that they were a little bit different. They speak different languages.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a good way to jump, because the kids go back, and often in expat life, kids and families, they go back home. So what happens, and has it changed now? What happened when you come back? Because I know from a fact, and even from my own experience, is that when you go home, you cannot have the same conversations with friends and say, especially if you live in Europe, and we take the train, it's 3 hours to France, go to Barcelona, and you could go to London for the weekend, and then you come back, with all due respect. And the United States is obviously a lot bigger, but even if you go to Australia or different countries, not everyone understands when you tell them, what your life is like in your so-called new home. So what happened when you go home, and what happens now when you go home? Is there a problem? Is it difficult? Do you not talk about certain things?
Well, I just kind of, actually, I'm like the little sister. And so I don't know, I just kind of slot in, and I'm very adaptable. So I just kind of slot in, and with conversations, I actually don't talk about everything. And I know that one of my brothers actually recently said, so does she really speak another language, or can she just like order in a restaurant? And I was like,
oh, you have to prove what goes on at home? Really? Unbelievable.
And
it's not easy.
Some of my siblings have come. No, it's not. But some of my siblings have come to visit me, not all of them. And when they come to visit me, there's always this aha moment. So I know when they come, like when they've come the first time, they get to Europe, and I'm on my bike.
We have a little bit of a connection problem.
And they're like speaking in French or in German. And
so, Allison, I think that we have a little bit of a connection problem. Apologies to interrupt you. Our magic man, Pablo, is in the back, and actually, we're going to bring you back up. There you go. So you may be able to hear you, but the message is just coming back and forth. So please, go ahead, continue. If you can still hear us, go ahead.
I could hear you the whole time.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, I think that for me, when I'm back again, am I okay?
Yeah, no, you're fine. Well, let me, we're pulling up the image back and forth. Let me help you a little bit along the way. We're talking about, obviously, when you're coming back, what is it like, when you come back from holidays, are you able to have those conversations? I think it's, it's one of the big things that people And I see it's great now with the sound. So one of the things that people talk about a lot, I hear a lot of expats that say that, it's not always easy to have the conversations with friends at the dinner table, or when you go, COVID is different this year, when you go home for Christmas or for holidays. It's sometimes, a lot of people sometimes try and kind of divert the conversation, not to what happens in your home across the pond, so to speak. Is that something that you come across? And you talked about your brother. Well, let me just continue as Pablo's helping get Allison back and forth in the room. Now, Allison, you look really good. We were talking about, this is the technical challenge of being able to talk to each other across the pond. We're not across the pond. You're in Switzerland now. Let me switch, because we were talking about what it was like, talking and having those conversations during things like Christmas time when you come back. What I want to move to something else, because you're American and you're Swiss. You have 2 passports, correct? Yeah. I don't know if you can hear
Correct.
me. Yes, you can hear me. And so what that question for me is, when you're in Switzerland, are you a local or are you an expat? And we'll just try and see what's going on with the sound. Let me retry. Pablo's working on the sound in the background. I will repeat that question. So when you're in Switzerland, are you a local or are you an expat?
Okay, I have no idea what's wrong with the connection. I hope it gets better.
It's getting, a little bit rough sometimes, but it's not, he says it's not much we can do, but we'll just continue with you. If you hear me, then we'll do it. Apologies for the sound. It's going in and out, It's all right. So when you're in Switzerland, are you an expat or are you a local?
So I would say I'm a local with an accent. So I've become a local. But it's the funny thing about that is that, so I'm Swiss now. So yes, I'm a local, but at the same time, the locals don't think that I'm a local. So, and when I go home, when I go to Farmington, Utah, where I grew up, they also don't think that I'm a local. So it doesn't matter where I am. I'm a local. So it doesn't matter, I'm not local.
Mm-hmm. And so that's the thing. I think it doesn't matter where you live, correct? I think that if you're in Switzerland, a lot of expats have this. They think, I know that here, that when people speak English here, that everyone thinks, oh, you're an expat, while some expats have lived here for so many years. But it's unbelievable. So I'm looking at some of the things that I thought we would talk about, and I'm saying, obviously you have an amazing business life. You're an author, public speaker. Normally you're on the road, all the time, and speaking to schools, speaking to children. I'd like to go actually to when we first met, to an amazing book, and it's called, Would I Have Sexted Back in the 80s? And people would be like, what are we talking about? Yes, we're talking about the book, Would I Have Sexted Back in the 80s? So that title, great, cover also. How does that work? Writing a book. Where did this come from? Where did this idea come from? And tell me.
Well, actually, originally, when I first moved to Switzerland, I decided that I wanted to write a book about my family and growing up in this big, large family, but somehow I didn't have a great idea. And I was like, how can I do it? And I gave up on it a little bit, but I wrote it down on a piece of paper, need to write a book about my family, just like really randomly, will do one day. And I, when I have a big goal, I'll write it down. Like, I really need to do this. And then I was teaching a class in The Hague in the Netherlands to a group of teenagers. And I got in my car to drive home, and I had been talking about digital citizenship, which I do, but I had also been talking about sexting that day, and I had been telling stories about it and teaching how to manage it when somebody does this, sex. So as I'm driving back, an 80s came on the radio, and it transported me back to when I was a teenager, and I started to think, oh my gosh, if I would have had a cell phone, I would have done stupidest things. I would have been so dumb. And then I thought, oh, this is a great way to bring my family in. So the book is a lot of my family, because I talk about what it was like to be a teenager in the 80s and try to remind parents, hey, you guys were stupid too. You did not play. When I'm giving a parent session and I ask parents, so how many of you guys did something you weren't supposed to do? I mean, everybody in the room is nodding and laughing because, I mean, didn't you, Audrey? Didn't you do something you weren't supposed to do?
Wait, oops. That last question, you said, didn't you do something? And then I lost it. I just want to let everybody know, it's just the question of Wi-Fi connection. This is the digital world talking about, digital books. So apologies for the sound coming in and out. I'm going to ask Allison if she can go ahead and ask me the last question. You said, didn't you?
Didn't you do something ridiculous when you were a teenager?
It depends on who's watching if I'm going to answer the question. Yo, sure. I didn't become this crazy woman by myself. No, of course we all did. Thank God we didn't have cell phones. I'm really happy we didn't have cell phones then. I remember my daughter saying.
Yeah, I can tell you can thank him because it's.
Sorry. I remember my daughter saying when we had WhatsApp and, the blue little, what do we call it? In Dutch, we call it vinkjes. So I think it's English. It's like when someone's read the message, what is it called? Little tick? Is that what it's called? She said that little check mark. Yeah. She said, that's going to mean that a lot of relationships are going to be gone right now, because if you don't react after that things turn blue, then you have a problem. So I love the fact that you talked about, and I've interviewed you about this before, I love the fact that you talk about literally the whole world and the life behind what's happening when kids get on social media. And, we're going to make the jump to your latest book because you now have, an unbelievable range of new books are coming up. But I kind of want to just kind of ask Pablo if he can go ahead and show us the little movie that you sent, because there's a whole life. You're a mom, you're, you're an author, you're a consultant, all kinds of things. Let's take a little look and have a little break, just kind of at a little movie, a private moment in your life. I'd love to see that. So I love that little piece of your life. And, the reason why I love it, because when we think of expats and we think of traveling, but for some reason, many people always think that, with all due respect, that the husband works and the wife stays at home and takes care of the children in the new country. Now, I didn't state this title above us, A Powerhouse on a Mission, for nothing. You started after, writing. You were on a mission, and you started a series of children's books, which is a nod to technology, as you say, in our lives, in cooperation with the Swiss Federal Institute of, and I'm looking, Technology in Lausanne. Tell us how this came, because now, just before COVID, you were traveling it was difficult for me to reach you because you were traveling all across the world talking to teachers and to children about digital life. Tell us how the Oscar and Zoe, the new series, which is now, actually live and available. Tell us how this started and this whole huge idea.
Well, it actually started with the school. Funny enough, it started with the same school that I was driving home with when I had the idea for What Have I Sexted back in the 80s. And the principal of that school said, Allison, we love your work. We think your stories are amazing. Can you not put more of them onto paper? Can you not help teachers? Can you not write stories? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I could. And she's like, no, you could sell them. And I was like, yeah, I guess I could. And she was really pushing me to do this because she's like, everybody can't hire you and you should be teaching other people to do what you do. And so I started doing this and called it Edit Curriculum. And then I heard actually, as dumb as it is, just on LinkedIn, I saw somebody who got a new job at the EPFL, and they said they were going to bring computers to Swiss schools and they were going to bring digital. And I shot him a quick mail and said, hey, I've been traveling the world doing this. I happen to be Swiss, and I've got a program already in place, and I didn't have for younger kids. And he said, can you create stories for young kids? And I was like, sure, I can. Why not? And I started creating the Oscar and Zoe series, and they started actually with a different character, and I showed them to a teacher in Uzbekistan who was really critical of my first idea. And I was really angry, and I sat on the plane flying from Uzbekistan, Tashkent to Geneva, and I was like, bah, 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 bah. Oh, she told me it was a bad idea. Why did she say that? And I started taking notes and thinking about how I could shift it. And I did think she had some valuable critical feedback. So I started taking that into consideration, and Oscar and Zoe was actually kind of born in a plane, the idea, between Tashkent, Uzbekistan and Geneva. And the OPFL and the teachers fell in love with it. So tell me, because that's a great little bridge. What are the Oscar and Zoe series about? Teachers out there watching, international parents who are thinking, oh God, I love the illustrations also. What are the books about? What are the books used for? Are they just for kids to read at home and parents to read? Are they to use in school? What are they for? Well, the idea actually is there for everyone. So ideally, if I could have it the way I would want, it would be children would be introduced to Oscar and Zoe in the classroom. So an ideal world would be that the teacher would read the stories to the children. And at the end of each stories are questions. And the feedback that has come rolling in we tested them with 295 teachers, is they were like, I've never seen my students talk so much. I had no idea. So it's opening up a dialogue. The goal of the book is to open up a dialogue with children about their digital lives and what they're seeing online, and make them realize that they need to talk about what they're experiencing online, that they don't need to hide it. A lot of children hide what they see online from their parents because they're scared that their parents will take their device away. And so then the idea is that the children will take the book home, read it at home with their parents, lend it from the classroom, and then the dialogue continues at home, so that we can bring this triangle, parent, teacher, family, together, and that everybody can talk about this in a really healthy way. And every story has a different idea behind it, a different goal. And each of the stories have Oscar and Zoe, who are two best friends, very best friends, and they kind of goof up and have little mishaps with tech. And you know what? That's the way it is. And look, we've even had some mishaps tonight with tech. It's just the way it is.
Great. So tell me, for what age group are Oscar and Zoe?
Oscar and Zoe are for ages 4 to 9, but I would say the sweet spot for me, personally, is between 5 and 7. Okay. But officially 4 to 9. And
so to make another jump, we're talking about Oscar and Zoe, but what has been the biggest challenge being an expat internationally and raising children? would you advise people who are now thinking, because what's happening with COVID-19, there are a lot of people are reorganizing their lives and they're thinking, I'm picking up my things and I'm going. Sadly, other people are being made redundant. And, some people have, had obviously problems or have gotten ill. But I notice also in the international world that a lot of people are ready to travel as soon as they're allowed, but then literally, getting in like a caravan and going, taking off. What do you advise people? Do you advise parents to take their children and, cross the borders?
So that's a hard question to answer, because I think that it depends on your personality and your job and your engagement. So if you want to take the most of the expat experience, I definitely would advise parents to go local. What I mean by going local is learning the language and putting your kids in local schools. That is where you have the true beauty and where you connect with the culture and where it's really rich and valuable. And I think it's the best thing that I've ever done is to go local. That said, it's a little bit harder. If you say, should you just like jump and go? It depends on your level of adventure and if you are adaptable or not. If you are somebody who thinks you're adaptable and that you can deal with some mishaps, yes. And I also think it depends on, I've lived in many countries. So if you come to the Netherlands, you don't necessarily have to learn Dutch and you can get by. If you move to Bordeaux, France, and you don't speak French, good luck. You can write me an email and tell me all about it, because I don't think it's going to work.
So, what about your children? Thank you for that. I read not too long ago in Dr. Schwab's book about the fact that when children are raised multilingual or bilingual, that actually the case of Alzheimer has an extensive delay in a positive sense. What are your children saying? Are they continuing, you think, the expat life, or are they like, I'm not moving, I'm not moving. We've been taken around all over the place. Have you had that talk, or do they say anything?
No, actually, we don't really talk about that. I think that, no, actually, weirdly enough, I do think that Moses he will definitely be international. He will go where there's job in the industry that he loves so much. Moses is 19 and he lives in London right now. And he likes it very much. He's very, very happy studying in London. He's studying film in London, wants to work in the film industry. So he will go where there's a job. There is not a job for film in a little Swiss town. So trust me, he's not staying in Switzerland.
Your other two children?
Maya, I think it's too early to know. And my daughter, I think as well, it's just too early to know. I think it depends a little bit also on partners, who you end up being with and where you get a job. But I think that they would all move for a job. If they had the right opportunity, if an opportunity came up, they would go.
And I see also what you're saying. Like you said, if they have the right opportunity, a lot of times what you see is that children above a certain age, they stay in their home country. And by that, I mean the country they're born, especially when they're, whether it's high school, or and at the teenage years, there comes a decision: do I stay with mom and dad and study in the new country that, my parents are working in, or do I go back to where I was raised, so to speak, or where most of the family is, and stay there? Do you think now with Corona, there's a whole shift of what families are doing with their children? Are they staying together more, or actually are they sending their children back, or asking and talking to their children, listen, it may be a good idea if you go where grandma and grandpa live, or is that something that you haven't talked about or heard?
I actually am seeing a huge shift to staying in Europe, and actually for the simple reason that universities are nearly free. So we did not give our children the opportunity to go to the States to go to university, because I think that we paid something like $350 a semester for our daughter's university, and then we just had to pay for her room. But I mean, like, serious, and it's an amazing university. When you see the prices in the States, why? I'm like, why would you do that? And
Great.
we speak, and she's at a bilingual university where she's speaking different languages. And Moses is in London, which is still so much cheaper than the States. And so we made it clear to them that we thought that we liked the idea of having a university that was free. So we're like, stay in Europe, guys. University is free.
Yeah.
And so and I do see that most of my acquaintances and friends are making that choice. So many of them are telling their kids, hey, did you know that there's a university in Leiden that has English program? Did you know that in Amsterdam? Did you know? So
yeah, amazing. And it's not, and it's even not only the tuition. And I remember studying abroad. I paid 4 times tuition money going from college into university. Would have been even more expensive. And I never ended up going to university in the United States, in Florida, where I was studying and did my first few years of college. But it's things like health insurance also. I mean, if I tell internationals that in Holland, and I don't want to have a, don't get angry at me, and government now have an influx of, I love everyone to be able to come here, but we have free healthcare until your kids are 18, and things like orthodontistry, 2,000 euros, per child that is being paid. You have a premium of about, I think, if I'm right, about 140 euros. And that's even, an extensive, a bigger dental plan and things like that. So for 140 euros a month, you and all your children, 1 adult plus all the children under 18 are insured for free. And when I tell internationals and our clients this, they look at me like, tell me again. So I think the basic necessities of education and healthcare, why they are not being made a priority worldwide is, beknownst to me. I find it very interesting. That especially the things that are most important, your health and your education, are being made the most expensive. But let me put it this way: let's hope that in not too long a period, we'll see across the world, world leaders thinking about changing that. So speaking from world leaders, I consider you a big leader too. What are your plans now? It's very difficult to make plans for anyone because we're only from press conference to press conference. What is the first thing that you will be able to do with Oscar and Zoe right now? Are you being halted because of COVID-19, or tell me? Yeah,
actually, it's very difficult. So things have been slower than I would like them to be, and I've been very much halted. And actually, I think that the biggest problem is that schools do not have the brain capacity to take on something new right now. They are they're on overload. They're on crisis management mode. They're at school for a week, school not for a week, school back on for 2 weeks. And I don't think that anybody has like the bandwidth to deal with something new right now. So everything has kind of slowed down to a near halt. And I actually feel like I'm on a holding pattern. I feel like I'm an airplane circling above an airport, just waiting until it's time to land with something amazing on board. And it's not quite time to, unfortunately, I think that it's not quite time to land yet. And when COVID is over, I'm going to really enjoy actually being in the classroom, sitting on the floor with a group of kids and reading these stories to them, and doing teacher trainings, because that's what I do as well. I teach teachers how to do what I do, and how to engage with kids in a non-judgmental way about what they're experiencing online. And the whole idea behind it is keeping children safe, because they need to know when they need to go to mom and dad or a teacher, and mom and dad and the teacher need to know how to stay calm and cool. And so it's like kind of engaging everybody and training everyone. And I can't wait to get back out there.
I think it's amazing. I think your timing is perfect because life has shifted so much digitally right now during COVID, and I think it will take a while before school will be all live. And I we see it across Europe right now. So I cannot wait to see you make an even greater impact. And I want to leave kind of an end with the last question. Is for those parents who were either imminent and about to travel across borders, being expats, all over the world. What is your last piece of advice for them, before they pack their suitcases and are able to travel again? What would you tell them? Your golden tip, so to speak. Talk to me.
Golden tip for an expat, I would say, is to be adaptable and open-minded when you get to a country and learn the language, at least the basics of the language. I actually think that that's one of the most important things that you should do. So, and even if it's just, an A2 bare bones minimum, I think that especially if you're going to send your kids to local schools, you need to do it. And I think that you need to take some time for that. So as you're planning that move, plan to take some time for some lesson classes.
I think it's the best advice. I totally agree with you, even if we in Holland speak English. I want to thank you, and I want to wish you an amazing, future with the Oscar and Zoe books. I know I'm a fan, and I am. I think that our future little mini leaders of the world need to be guided strongly in what's going out there in the digital world, and I think it will teach parents also. I look forward to seeing you again, because I know obviously you're traveling back between Switzerland and Amsterdam. And I thank you for your time, and I thank everyone for listening and joining us on the Talk to Audrey show. Thank you very much, and goodbye, everyone. Goodbye, all. Bye, Allison. Take care, and happy holidays.
Bye. Thanks, Audrey.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.